Welcome to Two Guys and a Question podcast. What if leadership isn't about having the right answers? What if it's about asking the right questions? Danny Jefferson and Alan Creedy talk about how curiosity, listening, and awareness create stronger teams and better leadership.
I'm Alan Creedy,
I'm Danny Jefferson.
and we're Two Guys and a Question. And Danny, I think you know that I'm a student of leadership. I'm not a leadership guru, but I am a student of leadership and have my own perspectives and so on. I thought it was very interesting. I still subscribe to Harvard Business Review, although it is a shadow of its former self, not much worthy of reading. But
I like their surveys.
But they came out with an article just this month, 6 Essential Leadership Skills and How to Develop them.
Okay.
Good article. It could be better, but my point here is that I thought you would be interested in their opening statement. The best leaders of the 20th century were question answerers, setting the vision and strategy from above. But the best leaders in the 21st century are question askers. They seek feedback and new perspectives, and they ask curious questions about themselves, their teams, and their market environment. So we're back to this whole issue. You're ahead of your time. But the question askers. And one of the parts of this article that I thought was interesting, and it might appeal to you, I know you haven't read it, suggests that if you're trying to develop a team and you're trying to figure out how to manage and lead your team, be a leader, that you develop a sense of the emotional fabric and so on. And I have to tell you, I don't know if I've done that purposely or unintentionally, but I can tell when I go into a business what kind of group that is. I will tell you that whenever I go into a funeral home and everybody tells me how wonderful they are and how they're a family and they love each other and so on and so forth, I can take a cash bet that when everybody else is out of the room, they're going to start stabbing each other in the back. But let's put that aside. This author made a recommendation I thought was interesting, and that is that you ask each member of your team, each person on the staff, and I would include your part-timers, to write down, and they can do this anonymously, to write down what 3 things that they like about working at the company, and then 3 things that frustrate them about the company. And that you take those and you collate them and you start talking about them in your meetings. All right? Let's explore that. What does it mean? How do you help people? You don't have to pick on the person that does that. I would assume that in most funeral homes there's going to be more than one person that says that. And likewise, if they say, I'm really frustrated that I seem to be the only one carrying the load here. So I like that exercise because it gives you a sense of what everybody's feeling and where their pain points are.
The people that are working for you that are doing the most work are the most silent.
Is that right? Tell me about that.
The ones that are getting left behind are usually the ones that are most vocal.
That's true. I've experienced
that. And where was it? You sent me something recently that.
Oh, yeah.
What was the quote in that about the number of people that 20% of your staff is doing?
I think it's Jordan. What's his first name? I can't.
No,
Peter Jordan was the person who was talking about that. He says it's really more than that. He said it's much fewer are carrying the majority of the load. And then he made the comment, and I thought this was interesting. In most companies, management spends most of their time trying to get that 80% that isn't really performing up to speed and ignores the 20% or whatever number it is who are doing most of the work. And we had a very dramatic thing happen 2 years ago when Musk took over Twitter and laid off 80% of the staff, and now the rest of the staff stepped up. And what does that say?
Let me say this. I was with a group of clients recently. The owners suggested that I have dinner with their staff, their team, without the owners being present.
Correct. That's a good idea. I've done that.
It was a wonderful thing that I think we'll do a lot more frequently. They were more open. They were not accusatory. They were not talking about all the bad stuff. Honestly, it was a good meeting. It was open, and the owners were so worried that stuff was going to come out. And maybe it all didn't, but the point being the team enjoyed being together. They enjoyed talking out loud about things that they knew were going on. The few little bitty things that they thought they'd like to fix all seemed to be a common denominator. They agreed to attack it in a different way as a group.
I'm glad you brought that up, Danny, because one thing did come out of that meeting that was a personality flaw. It was normal. It was nothing dramatic. And in fact, I would suggest that you and I both have done what came up. The owner was completely unaware of how his behavior was affecting the staff. And once he learned, he stopped doing it. And I don't want to, people are always going to say, oh, it must have been sexual or whatever. That was not it. It was very benign, but it was a mannerism that frustrated some staff members. My point in bringing that up, I've never met a perfect person. As far as I know, the perfect person was born 2,000 years ago, and that's the last one. So everybody has these traits, okay? Most of us are completely unaware of what those traits, their personal traits are. A personal example, I learned some 30 years ago from an outside consultant that I can be perceived as harsh, completely unaware. No idea that I had that going on, and I've dealt with it. I'm still probably have it, but at least I'm aware of it, and I'm trying to overcome it.
In this particular case, and it's a good example, the team felt devalued.
That was the impact of this unconscious trait.
Right.
Subconscious.
Of the way that it was being handled, dinner, that time that the team was talking together, they all wanted to be wanted to be needed.
That's one of the number one motivators in staff.
When you are wanting to be needed, it increases your value perception. Everybody wants to be needed.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to be wanted. As a leader, if you're asking a question of your team to get their opinion, to get their advice, how would you do this? If you were me, what would you do?
So that gets back to give me 3 things that you like about working here and 3 things that frustrate you. Very simple exercise.
But the question, as a leader, asking questions instead of ending your sentences with a period is extremely powerful.
And going back, we'll close this with the comment again. The best leaders of the 20th century were question answers. The best leaders of the 21st century are question askers.
When leaders ask better questions, people feel seen, heard, and valued. Start with curiosity. Start with one good question. Remember, you now can tune in on Spotify, YouTube podcasts, Apple, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. You can do it, and we can help.